There's also a galactic piece to this that I don't think the mainstream is quite ready for that. It's enough for them to see the human control going on, but I do think there is a galactic element to that. There are beings who have been here for thousands of years, who've been interacting with humans, and that will. I think that'll come pretty quickly on the heels of our awareness of human manipulation just by other
Mhm.
humans.
Welcome into Journey to the New Earth. I'm Kimberly. I'm so glad you're here today. You know, we all have those special people that we resonate with and follow in these crazy times, and mine is with us today. I'm so excited for you guys to experience this time together. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you leave and make sure you click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you'd like to keep track of what's going on this crazy planet right now, you might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a very short, very sweet, but we think informative newsletter highlighting what we think are the important changes or events on the planet. It's super informative. It's very free. I think you're going to love it. The link is in the description box down below. And if you're looking for your people, but you don't have anybody to talk to, you might want to come over and join us on the locals community for Journey to the New Earth. That's journeytothenewEarth.locals.com. We're a great group of people over there that finally have found someone that they can talk to. No censorship. It's a great platform. I think you might enjoy it. In today's toxic world, taking care of our health is more important than ever. One of the natural solutions I've integrated into my routine is the benefit of mushrooms. And the go-to place for me is Birch Boys. They are without a doubt one of the greatest resources for mushroom products on the planet. Made in the USA, sustainably sourced, and run by an absolute wonderful entrepreneur, Birch Boys has become my go-to for natural health solutions. While they have a wide variety of mushroom products, the two that I use every day are right here. First, I use the ChagaNOW, which is a wonderful mixture that I put a tiny little scoop in my morning coffee to support my immune system. Chaga is one of the most effective immune support compounds on the planet, and this is a super way to get it into your daily diet in an easy to use formula and very, very effective for immune system support. And if you're looking for clear thinking, I can tell you, you'll be surprised at the effects of lion's mane. I use this lion's mane tincture, 1 teaspoon every single morning, and the difference in the clarity of my thinking is extraordinary. I was actually really, really surprised. Birch Boys has a whole lineup of mushroom tinctures. Make sure you check them out when you're on the website, but I'll tell you what, these are my two favorite, and I use them every single day. They are absolutely a quality company built on integrity. Go to birchboys.com and use the code NEWEARTH for 20% off your entire order. Birch Boys mushroom products, I think you're going to love it. And with that, I'd like to welcome in Wendy Kennedy. Wendy, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
Well, I'm so tickled to have you. I was just telling her I attended the Sedona Ascension Conference this year and was in the front row like an eager little puppy during her breakout session. So it's a real treat for me to have this opportunity to talk to you one-on-one. For those who are not familiar with your work or your journey, can you give us just a little brief background into how this all started for you and what it's been like over the decades that you've been working in this area?
Yes, so it's been almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years next year. So we turn the calendar here. I can't believe it's fast upon us. But for me, looking back, I think there were things that happened earlier in my early 20s. But at the time, I didn't really recognize that things were happening. I started having some past life memories. And around my mid 20s, I started having visions, and I didn't really know what they were in relation to. I now know that they were past lives, but the image that I was seeing, I thought maybe it was connected to the building that I was living in. And so I started doing some research on that and I came across channeling. And at the time, there were a few channelers out there, but really not a lot, certainly not the way that it is today. And I just knew it was something that I was supposed to be doing. And so I was already doing meditation and studying that. And I was doing a lot of work on myself and I was trying to channel, but I was having a difficult time. I was feeling the energy, my eyes would flutter and I would tingle, but I just could not get the words out. And so I just kept doing more work on myself. And after about 9 months, I knew one day when I sat down that I was supposed to have pen and paper, and I started with automatic writing. And so that went on for about 9 months until I heard it's time to put the pen down because I was already hearing the words well in advance of writing them. And it's at that time that the ninth dimensional Pleiadian collective came in. And that's who I work with primarily when I work with the public. But I have a whole pantheon of beings who show up to support me, beings who are physicals, beings some who are celestials, and they range in dimension and specialty. So the Pleiadian Collective takes point here, and they are a group of about 2,500 beings of light. They don't have physical form, and they work with tone and sound, which is why they were waiting for me to channel verbally. And it's not really any one dialect. You'll hear that my dialect may change, but really it's just open vowels that they can modulate. So in addition to getting the information today, it's as if you're getting a healing. And I think we're going to be doing a little bit of channeling in a bit here, so everybody will get a chance to experience the P's. But that's how it's all unfolded for me. It's been crazy to me that it's been 30 years.
Yeah, it probably does feel like it's gone by really fast for you, particularly how busy you've gotten lately.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's crazy how the time has gone.
Yeah. Now, when you're working with the other collectives other than the Ps, is it something that you intentionally sit down and bring and pose an issue or a problem or something that you want to work on and someone comes in? What's the process for that when you're not working directly with the public and the Ps?
So it depends on what I want to know about. I have a guide who comes in specifically on health, and then I have other beings who are just kind of they're primary guides for me, and it really depends on the topic, what I'm curious about. And I never know when I pose a question if it's going to be the P's or one of these other guides who shows up for me. There are probably about 5 guides who show up on a regular basis for me. Some that I haven't connected with for a long time are still there and present. I can feel their energy, but they don't necessarily step forward. They're not necessarily the first ones who show up. And for me, my guides are pretty respectful in that they're not beating down my door. I might get a hit or an awareness of something, and then I might stop to check in, but they're not persistent with me in that way because I probably shut everything off. That's just my personality. So, they let me come to things in my own time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I realize, I've noticed over the course of the time that I've been involved in this arena is other collectives seem to have better manners than we do sometimes.
I think much better.
Yeah. What I want to do, focus on before we do the channeling, I want to get your feedback on the Palladian perspective this past weekend. For those of you who are new to Wendy, every month she does a private channeling. You get online and it's a couple of hours. The Pleiadians come in, the Ps come in, kind of talk about a topic, set the stage, and then take questions. And it's kind of like my monthly thing that I do. It's really always so helpful to me. And then there's an activation, a language of light activation. Of course, there's a meditation before. What I want to talk about is a topic, a portion of the conversation that the Ps had prior to the question and answer, Wendy. And that was, and I actually wrote it down, but I think I can kind of preface it. So they said, when you wake up in the morning, select the frequencies that you want to work with that day. And then they named off 3, which are my exact 3. It's peaceful, happy, and energized. It's like I'm thinking, Did other people hear other things? Because that's so perfect for me. And it makes me wonder, it's like maybe my reality is specific for me. And then says when you start working this way, you take your energy out of the default. Those who are at the top controlling the narrative, and we do have a little thing going on the planet right now where there's sort of a, difference in where we want to go. There's people want us to go one direction, we maybe want to go another. So controlling the narrative, the media, the bankers, the doctors who have been giving you the story, you take their power away when you wake up and you decide the frequencies you want to work with that day. They've been using your energy because you haven't been using it. And for some reason, that hit me so different hearing it that particular way, because we always hear, or we hear frequently, you create your own reality. You create your own reality, which creates a dilemma for a lot of humans because we've been indoctrinated into the belief system that something happens and then you respond to it, not the other way around. I mean, we get up in the morning, oh, let's turn on the news so we know what's going on. Oh, let's see what the weather's doing instead of our own perceptions. So can you talk to us a little bit about how that framing that we've been, just the narrative, it's been, over and over again our entire lifetimes that we have to look outside ourselves for the information. How do we make that shift?
I think it starts in small ways. So, this is something that the guides have talked a lot about, and that's a main focus for them about taking back your power, you being empowered. That's really why they're here. It's what they want to help us to do. And, when I first started channeling them, a lot of the information was more big picture. Let's get everybody thinking big and out of the box. And then everybody started getting out of the box a little bit. They could think outside the box. And they said, okay, now we need to get to work. And it's looking at our own frequencies. Because in the process of manifestation, the frequencies that you generate get pulsed out, and then that gets reflected back to you as your reality. So whatever frequencies you're holding, consciously or subconsciously, determine what you're capable of perceiving reflected back to you as your reality. So if you have a belief that's there that says, most people are greedy and corrupt and unkind, then that's what you're going to see as your reality. But if you feel and you sense and you hold the energy that people are generous and kind, and that's the space that you're living from, then you're going to get more of that energy reflected back to you and see that in the world. So when we start our day with all of these negative stories, and it doesn't really matter whether you're listening to the alternative media or the mainstream media, most of it is negatively slanted. So that's where your focus goes, and that's the energy that you set up for yourself for the day. So the guides always suggest that we choose, before we even get out of bed, the frequencies that we want to experience. We get that energy moving and running from the get-go. And, they've also talked about this period that we're in from 2019 to 2026. They call it frequency wars, or rather that's what it's referred to as in the future. When they look back to this time frame, they call it frequency wars, because there are beings on this planet who are vying for control of the way that we think, the way that we feel, and the frequencies in terms of our body, where our physical body resonates. And, it depends on how far you want to go down the rabbit hole to see how far this really goes. But just to look at it at a very superficial level, we can see it in terms of our advertising, that, they really kind of crack the code on the human psyche and how they want to manipulate you to tell you that, oh, you really need this product because you want to look this way or you want to achieve this status. So just really at that level, we can see the control and manipulation going on, but it's far, far deeper than that. And we're just responding, most of us, out of habit and out of the default of whatever is happening externally. But the piece that the guides want us to understand is that everything that we experience is first internally generated. So if we're having these more negative responses, there is some matching frequency that we're emanating out, most likely at the subconscious level, that's being reflected back to us. And the reason it's being reflected back to us is so that we can see there is more life force energy. There's more source energy that's available to us, and we can choose that. I think when people start to kind of come around to the idea that they create their reality, there's a lot of self-blame. There's a lot of self-persecution about the negative things that happen in their life. They see themselves as being victimized, or what bad thing have I done, as opposed to just simply seeing the fact that there's more life force energy that I can access. And if I change my thinking, change the way that I perceive things, if I alter my frequency, I can experience more joy, more happiness, more peace, more love, more abundance. So, the guides say that's really one of the most important things that we can do. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if we don't use our energy consciously, somebody else is going to use it for us. Because if everything's dualistic, so if we're not being empowered, then we're going to play the powerless card. We're going to play that end of the spectrum. And in order to do that, we have to lend our energy to someone else so that it can appear from the outside that they have control over us. But
Yeah.
really, once we start taking our power back, it's kind of game over for that, because it's like a house of cards. It will come crumbling down.
Yeah, and that's how they finished it up. It's like, it's game over when we do take our power back. And when you look at it and you start realizing everything has been, or a lot of things in our reality have been set up to create that perception within ourselves that we don't have the power, that we have to wait to see what's going to happen in order to then react to it. But I bump up as a human, total human here, I bump up against what happens when something in my reality occurs that not only did I not create, or I did not understood I created, but I couldn't even have thought of it. And I think of something like, the whole COVID thing. That to me hit me out of left field, like, what? What is that? And first of all, I never could have thought of it because it's so stupid and so unfun. So what do we do with when we're hit with something where did that come from?
Well, part of it's to see the gift in it. And as unfortunate as it was, it also woke a lot of people up. So sometimes we need that challenge, that intense challenge, to get us to stop and to pay attention to what's going on, because otherwise we just keep going status quo. And oftentimes we'll create this in our lives. And the personality would never want to experience anything negative, but the soul knows that this is an illusion that we're playing in. And as humans, we find that really hard to believe, but we're really a divine being of light having this physical experience. It's like an actor donning a role. The actor knows he's an actor or she's an actor, but they, for a little bit, get to pretend that, here is their personality and here's the situations that they're in. And the soul knows that it's really just a moment. And it really doesn't define who they are. They're never diminished by any experience. So the soul says, well, this is an adventure, let's go. But the personality would never like to experience that. And I think that's hard for a lot of people. But this is something else the guides have talked about for the past 30 years, and helping us to understand this and to shift how we identify. And when we can shift in how we identify, not as just this small being, this one lifetime, that we are much larger than that, then things can be a little easier as we experience them in reality. That we aren't quite as triggered by some of the more challenging situations. And the guides always say, pain is perception. You can stay there for 30 seconds or 30 years. It's up to you. So when we experience something that's challenging and is what we would put on, in the negative column, when we can stop to see, what does this show me? What does this teach me? What can I take from this experience? Then we can move out of that victim perspective, because that's what creates the pain for us. And when we can say, all right, how can I stand in my power? What can I learn from this? How can I grow? Then we're not aligning with the pain of it any longer. And so that's why they really suggest that we pay attention to the challenge that comes up, how we're responding to it, because that's where the gold is. That's showing us where we are running programs and beliefs at the subconscious level. And sometimes we can't see that. Most of us don't go rooting around looking for it until it gets reflected back to us. But once we can see it, then we can change it. And as we start aligning and we keep aligning with higher frequencies, higher thoughts, we start to create new neural pathways and new subconscious programs.
Yeah. And that's so true. Can you talk to us about what actually happens to the field around us and how it bleeds into other fields when we choose our frequency?
So it's as if you are helping others to find a frequency. When others are exposed to that energy, it can be a reference point so they can find it themselves. The guides always say it's like asking somebody to sing the note of C. If you don't have perfect pitch, which most of us don't, it can be very, very difficult. But if somebody plays the piano, you say, okay, that note, I can reproduce that. Or if somebody gives you instructions, then you know how to do something. So as somebody is walking around with that higher energy, it reminds you of your true divine nature, and it reminds you of a frequency that you'd like to align with that feels really good. Some people, as they start to awaken, they want all of their family and friends on the same page, and they'll be like, oh, you've got to read this book, or you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And nobody wants to be told what to do. But if they see how you're shifting and changing and how much lighter you are and how much more joy you're experiencing, how much more love you're experiencing, they get curious about what's going on and they want to know more. So that's always how the guides say to work, is by working on yourself. And you can be a catalyst for change just by walking down the street and others see you as a reference point so that they can remember that there's another frequency available. Sometimes, especially when we're low, we forget that there's another way of being.
Yeah, and I think right now, understanding that concept and having the courage to step into that new pattern of choosing your frequency is so important, because I know that at times for me, it seems like we're on a roller coaster ride here on Earth, and that I don't like roller coasters, and that click, 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 click when you're going up to the top and your stomach is just like, sometimes I feel like that's planet Earth right now. And I had the funniest comment, Wendy. Recently, someone said, Earth, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
That's true.
And I thought, that's so true. But I really have been embracing the choosing your frequencies for a while now. And the gift for me, and it's going to be different for everyone, the gift for me is that now I can look out there when I do see information. I don't do TV and I don't do radio. I don't do that stuff. So if I go on social media, I can say, wow, look at that. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? Instead of it crushing me. But there is that balance. And I think that this is something that a lot of people it's going to resonate with them, because we've had some really challenging things happen on Earth. A lot of people are going through some really painful stuff right now. The aftermath of the hurricanes, we've got wars. How do you work with that balance? How do you personally work with it when you want to be in a higher frequency, but you also want to have compassion for those people who are clearly just going through some real tough stuff?
Well, I think those two things go together. So as you are in a higher resonance, you're able to hold a greater amount of compassion for others. You're not judging them for not being awake or choosing a challenging path. And that really is our gift to the universe as we go through this ascension process. As we get higher in frequency, we actually access more compassion, and we share that as a how-to with the rest of the universe once we shift the dimensional range. So for me personally, I'm aware, I will listen to things going on occasionally just to hear what's going on in the world. But I also pay attention to my own energy and how I respond to it. Because if I go into any form of contraction, then I know that there's fear running in me and I need to look at that. So it's a good way for me to clear more stuff, in a way, for me to become aware of what I might not recognize otherwise. I can use what's happening outside of me. And if I'm judging something, then I know that I need to pay attention to that. There's something that I'm not doing for myself or giving to myself, that I'm holding on to judgment, whether it's something that I experienced in a past life, that's in the genetic line programming, or just something that I reinitialized as I came in here. So I try to use it that way, but I also reset my energy. So I pay it, I listen and I gather that, but then I also come back and decide what frequency I want to go forward with. And I think that's the big thing that I've learned from the guides is just to keep resetting my energy throughout the day. For me at this point, I don't take long periods of time to do that. I just kind of check in and see where I'm at. Am I in fear? Am I in contraction? What's the quality of my thoughts? And if it's not where I want it to be, then I reset and I choose a new frequency. And then as I get towards the end of the day, I'll look at that stuff, that I shifted out of so that I can kind of work through some of those judgments.
Yeah, that's a beautiful process. I hadn't thought of doing that throughout the day, but I am enjoying the feeling of being a little bit more peaceful. That's a good place to be. And for those of you who have not seen the video that Wendy has done on frequency wars, you can find that over on her website, higherfrequencies.com, and I'll have it listed in the description box. Just go to the main page and scroll on down. It's on the lower left-hand side. You can watch it for free. And it was a really helpful video for me because it laid out kind of what the dynamic is going on. And I can remember still the first time when someone says, well, there's a little program being run on Earth, a control program. And all of a sudden I went, that's what it is. Everything fell into place when I understood that. And once you see it, it definitely made more sense to me. Like I could understand it. And every day it's like that peeling the onion thing where I see another little drop or drip or issue or something that was put into place to make sure that we stay within this little narrow narrative that's been designed for us. And it's such an act of freedom to not play in that.
It
Yeah.
is. And I think, we learn in levels and layers. So there's also a galactic piece to this that I don't think the mainstream is quite ready for that. It's enough for them to see the human control going on, but I do think there is a galactic element to that. There are beings who have been here for thousands of years, who've been interacting with humans, and I think that'll come pretty quickly on the heels of our awareness of human manipulation just by other
Mhm.
humans.
Yeah, it's that a little bit at first and then all at once. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. Everyone starts catching on, which is exciting. And I know that we decided that this was going to be a good place to be right now. So apparently we have everything we need. It's just sometimes in human form, it seems a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it can be. And I think that's why if you have a practice and you
Mhm.
decide where you want to vibrate and you reset yourself, that helps you because that overwhelm comes when it just feels like um, there's a desire to control, for one. And the control that we really have is over our own energetic field. We can't really control anything outside of us. So as we come back to that centered space, then we don't feel as overwhelmed. We're just present in the moment, and then we're in flow. We're dealing with whatever is coming up here and now. And that's something
Yeah.
else the guides always say. If there's something that you want to create and you've been thinking about it and you've been putting that out there energetically and you're just not seeing it show up, pay attention to what is, because the most important thing for you is whatever's showing up here and now. That's what you're meant to deal with. The universe often brings us what we need in order to get what we want. So we might find that we've got a couple challenges in front of us so that we can elevate ourselves by finding the solution energy. And, then we can really be in a higher resonance to align with the thing that we want to create, the ultimate
Yeah.
thing.
Thank you. How about we go into a little channeling now? Does that work for you?
Sure. Yeah. Ah, yes. Hello, dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you. So, as we start here, let us just add our 2 cents about this empowerment. If you can just start a little practice for yourself where you spend 5-10 minutes in the morning just laying in bed, if that's what you need to do, and just imagine a frequency. And we would say choose one or two, not too many, because we're helping you to begin to recognize subtle energy. And if you're choosing 6, 7, 8 things, then it's too much and you're going to miss the subtle energy. So as you decide, maybe you want to experience more abundance or more grace, more ease, more flow, whatever it is that you want, imagine what that would feel like to experience. Now you can say, I wonder what it would be like to experience joy, happiness. Or you can say, I am joyful, I am happy. The challenge with the second statement is that sometimes the ego mind gets involved and says, well, no, I'm not really happy right now. We've got this going on, that going on. And it can come up after about 45 seconds to a minute where that inner critic then starts in. But if you say, I wonder what it would feel like to be this thing, it's not threatened. It's just you using your imagination. And so the ego doesn't feel threatened. But whether you say, I wonder what it would feel like to be this thing, or I am this thing, it is allowing you to put yourself in resonance with the frequency. And that's really what you want. So just give that a go and then check in periodically throughout the day. You can set a timer for yourself for you to check in and just say, am I experiencing joy in this moment? Oh, I'm at work, not so much. All right. So take a nice deep breath and for 30 seconds, just imagine what it would feel like to feel joyful. All right. No one else has to know that's what you're doing. And then go on about your day and check in later, check in again and say, well, yes, I've got a little joy going here, but I'd like a little more. So let's imagine more joy. And it's just a matter of you checking in and course correcting as needed. Hopefully, every time you check in, if you've dropped out not quite as far because you're paying attention. You haven't spiraled all the way down. And every time you go up, hopefully you go up a little bit higher and you sustain it a little bit longer. All right. So it's a process. And then as you get to the end of the day, it is important for you to acknowledge the small moments or even the large ones. But starting out, just note the small ones where you experienced the frequency that you wanted. Maybe you wanted peace. And yes, it'd be nice to have peace in your family. Maybe there's some tumultuous relationships, but maybe today the peace that you experienced was 5 minutes out in nature and you got to watch a squirrel gathering nuts. So it's important to acknowledge the small things, and that tells the universe that you want more of it, because as you express gratitude for it, the universe says, yes, let's have more. So that is an important part in this process, but that can help you radically change your energy in a very short amount of time. Now, you might want to stick with these frequencies, maybe 1 or 2 for 3, 4 days, and then you can choose something else. If you want to, you can stay with it longer.
Wonderful. Thank you. What would happen if we expanded that out and started thinking, I wonder what a world full of peace would feel like? I wonder what a world full of freedom would feel like.
So
Too
the way
soon?
that, yes, go ahead.
Is it too soon for us to jump into those thought patterns?
Not at all. So you can hold that thought for the world, but you've got to put yourself in alignment with that energy. So if you want to see that reflected in the world, you have to be the living example of it. So where are you not in peace in your life? Maybe there is an area that you haven't forgiven someone. And so there's turmoil. Forgiveness, by the way, is more for you than for another person, because sometimes that other person could care less whether you extend forgiveness or not. But it frees you, allows you to release judgment. So that might be something that you need to do. Or maybe you are not living in a peaceful space. Maybe your space is very cluttered and you feel anxiety every time you walk in the space. So what can you do to put yourself and your space in alignment with that sense of peace and tranquility? Because again, you are what is going to generate and change the collective reality. All right. It's all based on your own frequency. So, if there's something you want from someone else, maybe you would like to be treated with more respect by other people. Pay attention. Where are you treating yourself disrespectfully? Are you not honoring the words that you've given to yourself? Are you saying, I'm going to, move my body more, or I'm going to take better care of my body, and then you go and eat poorly or never exercise? So where are you not respecting your own word to yourself? So make sure anything that you would like to see reflected back, either in your personal relationships or reflected back in the world, that you yourself are in alignment with the frequency that you'd like to see.
There seems to be a lot of interest on planet Earth right now from around the universe. Can you describe for us from your perspective what's happening on Earth and why this is such an important period in our timeline?
So this is a nexus point for experiences. So you move through these grand cycles of experience. So if you think about your astrology, and you've got your 12 houses, and each house allows you to have a certain experience in your life. It's going to focus on a specific area, and you've got bigger cycles than that. So you're going through one of these grand cycles and you're spiraling up. If you think about it like a track and there's a start and a finish line, so this start and finish line is an area of space that's rich with photonic energy. Photons are light particles, and they are filled with information and high vibrational energy. So as you're moving across this line, as you're starting a new phase, there's a lot of energy to help you. And as you're coming to the close of a phase, it's helping you to release. It's helping you to integrate, to elevate yourself. Now, it's not on the same plane as you go around this track, but rather it is spiraling up, but you still cross this plane that's rich with photonic energy. And that's where Earth is right now. Earth herself is a grand experiment. It was created and generated with genetic material from thousands and thousands of worlds. And along with that genetic material comes all of the emotional experiences, all of the knowledge, the wisdom. It's all encoded in the genetic material on this planet, and it's all contained within Earth's library. So any being on this planet can access all of this information and all of these records very easily. As you go within, you are made of the elements of this planet. And so holographically, you can access this information. Within you contain every bit of information on the entire universe. And if one molecule in the universe changes, if one molecule in the universe changes, every molecule in the universe changes to reflect the change. So as an inhabitant of Earth, the Earth records are more easily accessible to you. So think about having all those records in your auric field. When the soul comes in, it partitions off its awareness of all of that data because it would be too much to access. And so you just focus on a small part of the information, the records, and you'll choose past lifetimes to remember. You'll choose genetic line issues to take on board that will allow you to create a blueprint for yourself, kind of a pathway for you to experience your life. There are certain things that the soul says, oh, well, let's go down and do this. That would be really interesting. And let's work on this issue here and that issue here. So we'll put our records from this lifetime in, and then this genetic line issue, that'll help set up the pattern of limitation for us. And so these Earth records are more easily accessible to you because you are from here. Now, all beings in the universe can access these Earth records, but those who have a genetic line connection to you and those that are another aspect of yourself, meaning another lifetime, maybe on another planet, they can very easily access those records as well. All right. Because Earth was this grand experiment and had all this genetic material, there were many beings who were interested and connected. And so there was kind of a limit to who could access the information very easily. So think about it this way. Think about a stadium where you're playing a game. You've got the players who are down on the field, and then you've got those that are in the stands. And then sometimes you've got people who are out in the parking lot tailgating and having a party and listening from outside. And so that's what's happening in the higher realms here, that there are beings who are watching what's going on. You would be in this example, those playing on the field. And then you've got your own guides, your celestial friends, those that have genetic connection who are in the stands, and then other beings in the universe who are simply watching from afar. And this is an opportunity for the entire galaxy to go through its own up leveling, as well as the entire universe. But just at the galactic level, and why Earth is a grand experiment is because you have taken or genetic material from different star systems where there are archetypal patterns and challenges. And some of these challenges weren't resolved very easily or very well in other systems. And so you thought, well, let's see if we can add some more genetic material, and that will give us more kind of room to play. Think about playing with 100 Legos, what you can build, and then think about what you can build with 100,000 Legos. So when you've got more genetic material, more emotions to kind of play with, there are a lot more pathways to a destination. There are a lot more options available to you. So as you go through this ascension process, your how-to is then broadcast through all time, past, present, and future. Because time doesn't really exist. It's a construct of 3D. And in the higher dimensional ranges, you have a recognition of this. But here where you are, part of the construct of the game is to see things in a linear way, but it's not the true nature of reality. So as you are learning and growing, you are holographically sending off that instruction manual to other species in the past, in the present, and in the future. So they can take that information and they can access it if they so choose. And, you can think about it this way. Sometimes a friend might send you instructions on how to do something, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to open the file and use it. You might just say, oh, well, it's there if I need it, and then forget about it and never go back to it. So this also happens with other beings, that they have the opportunity to open those records if they so choose. And if not, they can just stay there without them having to access it. But as you go through this game, as Wendy mentioned, you are accessing a high level of compassion. And this is because this game that you're playing in has very strong polarities. So you've got black, white, and 1,000 shades of gray in between. And your lows are exceptionally low. Your highs can be exceptionally high. And when you have walked a path and you've experienced struggles, which everyone on the planet has at some level, not all situations and scenarios are the same. Somebody might, from one vantage point, had a really tough life, physically difficult. And somebody else might have had a very emotionally difficult time. But from the outside, looking at those two situations, you might say, well, this one was harder because you can see it on the outside. But really, both could be equally challenging. So on the surface, they might look different, but you may have walked a very similar path vibrationally. And because of that, you can have compassion for others in a way that other beings can't really sometimes. Some beings don't have access to a broad emotional range. They may be very intellectual. And because you've been there, you've done that in physical form, that allows you to access compassion in a way that even we can't in the higher realms. We have compassion for you, great compassion for you, but we're also not embodied. We haven't walked your path. And so as much compassion as we have, it is going to be different than the compassion that you experience, having been there and done that. So as you cross this dimensional barrier, as you shift your frequency high enough to move into another vibration range, you are sharing your information on compassion with the rest of the universe. And that is a game changer. That actually changes the universal game as well, which is why also there are so many beings throughout the entire universe who are interested in what's going on here. So that's a very long-winded answer for you.
Well, it almost seems like, we're the greatest show around right
You
now.
are. You are. We're, it's like watching a soap opera. We're all what's happening on planet Earth today.
I know it can be very dramatic. One thing I find interesting, and maybe I've heard this from you guys, the Ps, that humans, in particular Earth humans, have a much broader range of emotions than other collectives. Is that true? And if it is, why is that, and how does that play out? Is it a benefit?
It can be, yes. And it's because of all this genetic material you have. All these species have had different kinds of emotional experiences. And so you've got a broad range to pull from. And there are some species who, let's take the grays, for instance, they have been so mind oriented that they've lost their ability to connect with their emotional states. And so that's why there are hybrid projects on this planet, that there are souls who agreed when they incarnated to help the species to learn about emotions so that they could, well, and frankly, save their species because they're dying, because they've lost their creative spark. They've replicated outside of themselves to such an extent that it's degraded their DNA. And so they needed to hybridize in order to thrive. And so there are some souls that said, yes, I will donate. And there are probably a few people who are listening here who know that they are part of a hybrid project, that they have hybrid children. And this is why, because that emotional spark needed to be reincorporated into that species. So it is unique here, the range of emotion that you have, but also because you have so many variations of emotions, it also allows you lots of subtle nuances and ways to get to your destination, whatever it is that you want. You've got more building blocks, so to speak, to work with. And it is really hard for you to wrap your brain around the fact that there may be species who have, say, 6 emotions to work with. You look at the Cassiopean system, they focused a lot on art and creativity and beauty. And so their spectrum was more focused on the higher emotions, if you will, in a smaller range than you experience here. And that was just the setup for the game. There are lots of different games, lots of different setups for souls to go and explore frequency. It's like playing basketball or football or baseball. They're just games. And it's fun for the soul to go and play in these areas.
Yeah, Cassiopeia, that's where I'm going next. It sounds divine to me. You know, one thing about Earth, being here on Earth as a human, is there are no shortage of emotions. We've got them all. You want them, we've got them. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and I find myself like, ooh, I don't want to go down that road too much because that could feel overwhelming because it's such a high pitch right now. One of the things sort of want to wrap up with our time together before the activation is we've got this, oh, you guys call it the frequency wars. You know, we've got this issue going on Earth where there's a group that want to control, and then there's a bunch of us that really want our freedom. My the thing that comes up for me as a human here on Earth is I feel like this game started before the rest of us even knew there was a game being played. In other words, I came to this realization that there's sort of this control plan on Earth late in life. I mean, I had lived a lot of years buying into the narrative that is creating this control grid. So there are days where I feel like, wow, we're just outgunned. You know, we're outmanned. And I hear from you and others that I really work with and respect is that the only way out is up. The only way out is frequency, is to work with that which makes us feel happy and joyful and peaceful. I want to inject from a human standpoint is we could use some help. Is it any possibility that we're going to be getting outside help? Because right now, you know, I don't know how it looks from your perspective. You have a much broader perspective than I do sitting in my house in Florida. It looks like it's concerning because our efforts, our money have been used to create technology to control us. So I feel like the game is not, it doesn't feel sometimes that the game is fair. What can you say about that? And is anybody coming to help?
So from our vantage point, in some ways, it's a done deal. You've already reached a level of awareness that will move you forward in this game, as it were. So it's just a matter of how it's all going to play out. We're just watching how you're going to choose to allow it to roll out. But in terms of other beings showing up, those of us on the other side who are of a higher vibrational nature want to honor your free will. So the way that we're working is in conversations like this. We're not showing up in a big ship to push you. into a new frequency. Because for the masses, there's still too much fear program. There are still too many fears, too many programs that are running that, we want you to work them out human to human first, because anything that you play out human to human, you will also play out human to ET. All right. So you're cleaning house at this level, human to human, so that when we do show up, it's not going to trigger much fear and you'll be already standing in your power. So you don't, in that sense, need our help. A couple things to say in terms of how things are going. Remember what we said about the frequencies that you hold will determine what you see reflected back to you in the world. Now, your news, the information that you're receiving, again, both alternative as well as mainstream, are negatively slanted. This is what's broken. This is what needs to be fixed. This is broken. This is broken. This is broken. You're not getting the positivity report. All right. If that is what you all were fed a steady diet of, then you'd have a very different world. But there is a lot of positive action being taken. It's just not being reported. So you all are getting to this place where you are observing what is going on, and you're almost at a threshold here where the change can then be seen. All right, that you can see the change that you may have been longing for quite a while. But for those that are not awake, they still need high drama. So think about it this way. This is kind of how we describe it to you. Some of you woke up early. You got, your morning coffee. You sat out on the porch and watched the birds. You've been up for quite a while, and somebody else in the next room just keeps hitting the snooze button again and again and again. And it's almost time to go. So you've had your nice, relaxing morning, and they're going to be yanked out of bed and they're going to be rushed to get it together. So this is what's happening. You've been awake for a while. You've been able to have your coffee. You've been able to connect with nature. And then others, last minute, are going to be feeling this chaos and this energy. And it's just how the soul decided they wanted to have the experience, that it was a bit of a last minute shakeup. They needed high drama to get their attention. We always say drama happens when you're not paying attention to get your attention. So if you've got drama in your life, pay attention. It happened previously in your experience, an opportunity for you to recognize a pattern, but you chose to ignore it. And it happened again. It was created again, and you ignored it. It was created again. And each time it gets bigger and louder. And that's what you're seeing. And then also the other piece here for you to understand is that the higher you go in frequency, the lower you also go in frequency. And you see both extremes. This is very normal for a civilization or a planet that is going through the ascension process, because absolutely everything that is created, its polar opposite is also created at the same time. So the challenge and the solution are created at the exact same time. They're two sides of the same coin. They're just in different frequency ranges. And as you're going up, you're also seeing what is still left to be integrated at the lower end of the spectrum. So that's not unusual either. But again, the story that you're being told is, oh, here's all the high drama, here's all the stuff. You're not seeing how many people have awakened, how much more light there is on this planet than there was even a year ago.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point. And, from a human on Earth, the whole clickbait thing, we call it clickbait. And that is, a dramatic headline in order to capture attention. And it's usually a negative. It's usually a fear-based piece of clickbait. And I notice it's becoming so obvious, and that's the alternative media, the media as well, not just the mainstream media, which I feel like is, gosh. But on the flip side, I do see a lot of people who I would say almost have, I don't want to say stress fatigue, but they're just done with it. They're just done with the drama. They want to go do something fun. They're hiking more, they're painting more. They're just deciding, enough already. I just want to have a good time. And I think that group of people is growing. I see it around me in my friends. They're still doing the same activities, but they're doing it in a more lighthearted way. Or they used to play competitive pickleball, but now they still love to play pickleball. They just don't care if they win.
Yes.
So there's a real shift in humanity, and it feels fun. That part feels fun to watch. And it seems like there's just a little bit of straggling on that whole drama clickbait thing. But I just get the sense from being here on the planet that we're really close to people just saying, we're done with that.
Yes, you're very close. You might need one or two more high drama events, as we said, really through 2026. And after that, really, when you get to 2025, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can kind of see it at that point, and then you're just walking through that last bit through 2026. And at that point, you're going to feel like you are starting to come up with new ideas, new plans, new ways of existing that have never existed before on this planet. You're really having to think outside the box. So, in the process of manifestation, we always recommend that you focus on frequency over form. So, the old way and what's been talked about in the process of manifestation for the last 20, 30 years is to have the image of what you want in your mind and really focus on that. But that image comes from the old box. So, where you're headed, you don't have the visual reference point for some of the new things that you all are going to be creating. And also, when you get obsessed about a visual, then you're missing the frequency, which is really what you want. We liken it to getting a gift that's wrapped in the box. You are looking for a box that's wrapped with blue striped paper and a pink bow. Well, there are 50 other boxes that have exactly what you want inside, but you were so obsessed with the way it looked that you missed it. So, it is important for you to look at the vibrational essence of what it is that you want to create and start working with those frequencies, imagining those frequencies. And then things can show up in miraculous ways, ways that you never even thought possible. You were talking about COVID showing up in a way that you never thought possible. And there are other things that can show up that are of a lighter nature that support the frequencies that you want to experience and see reflected in the world. But you've got to give up the old image in order to stay open to receive the new.
Yeah. And as a human, those little fun things that show up, that is so cool. It just feels wonderful. So thanks for sharing that. So would you like to do an activation now?
Yes, we would. So, we want you to feel empowered. We want you to feel like you are capable of creating your own reality because honestly, you are creating 100% of your reality every single moment. Most of it is being generated at the subconscious level. So now we're just getting you to get into the driver's seat. Fifth dimensional reality where you're working towards, it is consciously creating and generating every single moment. So you're working right now at identifying what's subconscious and turning it into conscious awareness. And then you can start envisioning your reality. What frequencies do you want? So we're going to do an activation, which is about empowerment. It's about envisioning reality and then releasing your fear of the future. This is very similar to what we did for you all as a group this month, but it is what is most needed on the planet right now, that you all have the courage to stand in your power, to just choose a frequency. And it can be something that's rather small and personal. You don't have to be shouting it out to the world to tell them your belief systems. You don't have to tell everybody that this is what you're trying to create for yourself. It's just you quietly doing that inside. And you'd be shocked how many people really share your belief systems. We love the fact that you were talking about the community that you've created so people can connect around the world. And when you start talking about your beliefs, you might be really surprised that somebody who you've known for years shares a belief, but they just haven't discussed it. And that goes into fear of persecution from other lifetimes. But you all are more on the same page than not. All right. You might have different ways of expressing your ideas. You might use different languaging, but at the end of the day, you want the same things: peace, love, connection, health, vitality. So when you start to really listen, you'll discover this. People who you thought, you had nothing in common with, you do have things in common, and you'll find ways of co-creating together that are in balance as opposed to going to war in order to have a winner. All right. For one person's viewpoint to overshadow another's. Right. So this is a new way for you all to operate. And as you start to do that at the personal level, it starts to be reflected in the greater collective. All right. So with the language of light, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it is source language. It is comprised of light, sound, sacred geometry, and cosmic information. So there are carrier waves that are bound together in the language of light. And it speaks to you, the divine being of light, having this physical experience. And what it does is it helps you to attune your energetic field to a specific frequency. So, as Wendy was saying, with the piano, if somebody asks you to sing a note, you might have a hard time finding the note. But if somebody plays the piano, plays the note, you can hone in on it and you can find it and you can reproduce it. And that's what the language of light helps you to do. Now, there are different galactic beings who will come in as the activation is happening here. And sometimes there are groups of beings who are blending their energy together. So it's not just one or two. And they are depositing their how-tos into the language of light. So it makes it easier for you to find that information, to access it. They may, as a civilization or even as an individual, been able to walk the path or integrate. Integrate is the release of judgment, to bring back the awareness of everything as being part of the whole. They may have already integrated at that level for that specific issue, and they're showing you how they accomplish that. So that's why you might notice the energy changing. And typically what we recommend that you do is to work with this activation 3 times a day for 3 days in a row, just to become aware of the subtle energies. Now you can come back and listen to the recording and soak it all in, or you can just imagine connecting with this moment again, because the moment you experience it, it is recorded in your energetic field. To humans, you think that something that you can hear or feel or taste, touch, those things have more validity, more weight to them, as opposed to you just remembering something. But in truth, it doesn't matter. All right. You will access the frequency again in your field. And that just makes it a little easier for you then to see and recognize the energy as it is being presented to you in your external reality. So you can go, oh, that's the frequency I was looking for. All right. The package, the box looks nothing like I thought it might, but I recognize the gift. I recognize the frequency. It's in there, and you can step out and engage with it. All right. So nothing you need to know or do. Just relax. Take a nice deep breath. Ishkuto emberekta berjuketa ira arbishkota biribirkata berjuketi birkata hasa anda ora ishishi biribirkata patka berjiti ti arbishkota patka berjuketi hisa anda ar minu minu berjuketa duini minu minu jendere wena mirira berjuketa patka rijini birkata ere wiri berjuketa ti berjuketa patka berjuketa hasa anda didi biribirketa birkata arbete birjuketa hasa anda ora e biribirketa birkata berjiti hisa sa so or ish biribirketa patka berjuketi hisa akata. Take a nice deep breath. He's old. Ereberuto usa abarushkota athana katori imashinina isa takatori imaka alla aka ori imaka didi birikata hasa atakate ele limini iberiberushkota patakata berushkata bere hisa adudui berushkata bitikata hasa atata araberushkata birikati di usa ora amana berushkata patakati hisa akate. Hisa uri mara ara aberushkata bitikata berushkati ti hasa atata. Take another nice deep breath. Hishono oro esha takatare, hisa thiri isa irimini hikateri meshishi biribekata, hasa ara ikata, hisana kateri, hisa kuru uri I. All right, take one last deep breath. So, dear ones, this is where we will leave you, but know that we are always around. For us, every time you think of us, it's the next moment for us, because we do not experience time. All things happen concurrently for us. So you don't need Wendy. Just ground yourself, heart center yourself, ask a question if you need some assistance, and we will do our very best to put the information in your awareness until you get it or you no longer want it. So until we hear from you, we are watching, we are waiting, and we are sending many, many well wishes.
Thank you, Peace. And she's back. So, Wendy, how much do you remember when you do a channeling like that?
It's a bit like a lucid dream for me. So I remember quite a bit of it and for an hour or so, and then it starts to fade pretty quickly unless there's specific information that I know was meant for me to hear as well. And I'll try to hang on to that, but most of it fades pretty quickly.
Yeah, wonderful. I just resonate so much with the message. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me. It was such a joy.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful experience for me. And you can find all the information on Wendy and the Peas in the description box down below. And I can highly recommend the monthly Pleiadian perspective. It's just like it's the grounding weekend for me. It's usually on a Saturday. And I sit and I listen and it makes sense and everything just sort of shifts in a wonderful way. So try that out if you have time next month and you're interested. And you can always go back and check out the previous months as well. Wendy, I hope we can do this again sometime.
That would be my pleasure.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one, or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.